Good everyone, Ogdo's video, and today we have another episode in the Showcase series, which was asked for by Itzrainyboy. And today we have Japan. Japan's going to be the last one that is done on its own, so just remember that, because we're combining in China and Italy, and France and Sweden. So, what vehicles does Joe plan to get eventually in the Japanese tech tree? Well, there isn't many, but there is certainly some that have caught my eye. So I am going to be getting the H8K3 eventually, but this is low priority because it's a seaplane. I also want to get my hands on either the A6M5 Co or Tada's Kai 61 for aircraft, that is. For tanks, I pretty much have everything I want, so I don't need to worry about that. So, beginning with Hajiri's A5M4, this is a plane that has been massively power creeped. I wouldn't be surprised if they've already changed over the starter premium to the Kai 27 purely because of how bad Hijiri's has been doing lately. I did have one user comment on the review of this thing, like, why are they the same BR? And I was like, yeah, they're literally designed around the same time. It's just the Key 27 has a bit of a better airframe. And he was still asking, why is it still the same BR? And I told him, yeah, they were made around the same time. It's just different airframe. And if you put one at 1.7, it won't work. And he was still like, but why is it at that BR? And I'm just like, ugh, why do I have to deal with these people? But that's just the joys of being a content creator, I suppose. Don't worry, you'll see his comment in the dumb comments episode because we are close to being able to do a third. So be on the lookout for the future. But this is definitely a plane that, if they haven't already, they need to replace it because this thing has been massively kicked in the balls, especially by some of the power creep. Next up, we have the starter premium you should have when it comes to Japan, the Kai 27 Otsu Tachirai. This is a plane that has always worked for me. I've always enjoyed the Key 27s, and well, all I will say is that if Gaijin haven't already, they really should because this thing is amazing. I love the Key 27. It's pretty much a kite with an engine strapped to it. It is amazing. It's so maneuverable. It's so like its guns are crap for the most part, but this thing can do some work. This thing can match biplanes in some turns. And as a result, this is easily one of the best troll planes in this BR. Then we move on to the rank 1 premium you never see, the A7HE1. Now, whilst this doesn't get mistreated like the other 112 premiums, being at 2.0, it still has the modern 112 flight model. So it compresses, it doesn't feel very nice, but I mean, I think I reviewed the A7HE1 before the Key 27 came into the game. So if I was to review the A7HE1 nowadays, it would probably be a no, and just buy the Key 27 if you want a rank 1 premium. So yeah, that's just the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. Next, we have a plane which you will be seeing a review on, if not, you've already seen a review for it, the Kai 44-134. This again is a premium that, like the Key 27, should be in the game, but at the same time, this one came too late, in my personal opinion. Whilst I think the Key 27 should be made the new starter premium, I'm not happy with this thing being in a starter pack, and there's a good reason for that. Reason why I say that is because this aircraft doesn't really bring anything new to the table than the other Japanese premiums. Now, yes, they're not exactly going to give players the Kai 44-2 Otsu with its really awkward cannons, but I would rather see a different premium as opposed to this in the starter pack than something like the than something like this, because this just doesn't bring anything new to the table, and whilst I gave it a good review, there's better options. And speaking of better options, we have the Kai 44-2 Otsu, the old Putin scoop. When I first got this thing back in one of the sales in, I believe it was November in 2019, I absolutely enjoyed this thing. It was a lot of fun to play, it was very fun to fly, and just in general, it was just fun because once you got those cannons in, it would decimate pretty much anything other than a Sunderland. Because Sunderlands eat these things 40 millimeters like breakfast, like seriously. But it's a great fun aircraft, and whilst I wouldn't say it's priority over the other 2.7 premiums slash 3.0 premiums, it's still a good option if you like something a little bit different and derpish. Next up, we have the Japsair, one of my favorite premiums. This is a F4U-1A Corsair in the Japanese Air Force. Now, unfortunately, Japsair does get a bit, shall we say, slapped because the whole point of this aircraft was to fight the US with their own plane. Nowadays, you can't really do that because of the matchmaker. And this applies to a lot of captured premiums, and it's a real shame because the wholeheartedly point of buying it was so you could use a Corsair against the US. Nowadays, whilst this thing still is amazing, don't get me wrong, old Japsair just doesn't have the shine to it anymore. Although, I must admit, what a beautiful camouflage. Moving on to part 2, we have the BF-109E7, which is the premium I would certainly recommend if you're gonna pick a Japanese premium nowadays. But this thing, oh my god, this thing is awesome. It takes a 109E7 and puts it on the Japanese teams, which they're bloody good already. And back in the day, this thing used to fight US pretty much exclusively, with the sole exception being Russia, in which case this thing would crap on any Russian plane. It was absolutely awesome. And whilst this thing still is a little bit on the unique scale, it still does fight Germany for some weird reason, but that's just a matchmaker. And if you're skilled enough, you're gonna dominate even against the very same aircraft that's flown against you. And as a result, if you need a rank 2 premium, look no further, is all I will say. Next up, we have the Silver Angel, the Key 96. This is certainly a plane that is essentially a Japanese skyrocket. If you've played the XP50, this thing will be very familiar territory, minus the guns. It's a very nice aircraft, but it's definitely an acquired taste, as I said in the review. It's a plane that really requires pilot skill, but also learning of the guns, because you don't have that much ammunition, the guns are sparky, and it just doesn't feel as nice to fly as Skyrocket does, but I have taken this thing to a 7-0 match and gotten 4 kills, so it's certainly possible. It's just down to learning it and seeing if it's right for you. Make sure to do a few test flights before you buy the thing. Next up, we have the ranked 3 premium that you should buy, the Jappa Wolf, the Focke-Wulf 190 A5 for Japan. Now, I know that may come as a controversial subject given the very next aircraft, but trust me, when I go over the A7M1, you'll be surprised, because that thing's been crapped on by the old-fashioned Nerf bat, and I really don't understand why. The Jappa Wolf, however, whilst it has had a few flight model changes, is perfectly capable, and with it having the cannons that it does, it's great. If you don't have Jappa Wolf, this is the rank 3 premium for you. And then we come to this thing, the A7M1 NK9H. A premium that I first got in last year's November sale. Absolutely loved it, and then I took it out about a month ago and it's been beaten to death with the Nerf bat. It overheats quite a bit. The rudder appears to lock when you're trying to use the ailerons at the same time, and that can cause you to get outturned by 190As because the rudder locks and your elevators also lock. And I don't know about you, but the 13.2s appear to have been nerfed as well. And as a result, for the price of this thing, because remember it's like 2,100 GE, I personally would not advise buying this plane at this current moment in time, at least until they unnerf it. Next up, we have the Hargo Commander, or as I call it, the ha-ha commander, because opponents will be laughing when your crappy 37 bounces off them. That's all I'm saying. This is easily one of the worst premium tanks that you can have in the game right now. I really don't know why they think new players should have this to start off with in Japan. And in my personal opinion, a new Japanese tank needs to be implemented. And I mean that. This thing is garbage. If you're starting playing Japanese tanks and you get this as your first premium, you're gonna hate it. I mean, Japan rank 1 isn't amazing anyway, but giving them this, yeah, it's got good mobility, but that's all it's got going for it, because it's terrible. And this is easily the worst premium tank in the game, at least in my opinion, and from what I've played. Next, we come to the Rogo, or as we call it, the Wake Me Up Before You Rogo. This thing is a lot of fun. It's very underestimated, and if you angle the armor, a lot of people will just shoot here thinking they could pen, but they'll only hit the guy in the front turret and you can just shoot him with a 70. It's a lot of fun. You don't see these very often, but I would love to see more of them. Let's put it that way. And on to the last part, we have a tank that has been greatly buffed since the implementation of these new HE changes, the Chiha Shortgun. This gun is a naval mine, I believe it's a naval mine launcher, modified to be a tank gun with a muzzle brake. And, well, it certainly hits like one because this has been severely buffed thanks to the HE penetration changes. And even if you don't outrightly if you hit an enemy tank pretty much, this thing will kill it the majority of times. It just depends on where you hit them. And it's amazing. One of my subscribers, the Asian Ace, took out this thing for his first, I believe it was his first match, and he got 12 kills on the thing. It is amazing. And given just how powerful this gun is now, I think the decal on my gun barrel perfectly represents that. Next, we have the Chi-He 5th Regiment. I could not find a thing in terms of historical information on this tank, so if you happen to have any, please do let me know. But this is a tank that comes in the Japanese starter pack, included with the Kai 44 I mentioned earlier. And even though this thing is a okay tank, I still wouldn't buy the Japanese starter pack because of it. I mean, I only bought it because it was like £2, but the point's still there. This tank is not that great. I mean, it's okay because of the hold down protection, but if that's all you can claim for a medium tank, then that's not great. I mean, the 47 is okay, but when you start meeting Matildas, good luck, is all I will say. But if you want a tank that can crack pretty much everything in its BR and still keep on trucking, you want this, the Chinu 2. This is one of my favorite Japanese premiums. It's a absolute beast when paired with some good backup tanks like the Chaffee, the Nato, the Soki, which is a crap AA, but it does the job. And paired up with a good bit of CAS, this thing is a absolute monster. Although I would love to see a bit more of Japanese tanks implemented around this BR because they really need it. But this is definitely a tank I would personally advise picking up if you do not have a Japanese tank premium because it's the best one, in my personal opinion. Some may disagree. But anyway, that's it for today. Obviously, Japan is now done, so we're going to be moving on to the next one, which is China and Italy. We're combining the two because there's only 5 premiums in China that I own. Anyway, I'm going to let you guys off, and I will see you all on the next one.